And join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have adjourned from the executive session into regular session. Now, public comment is going to start. And you can come up one at a time and speak for 3 minutes, and we'll hold it up to a 30-minute limit. So, who is the first one? Tamarack, Camp Tamarack. It's Heidi
Tate?
Tate, oh, sorry, Tate. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
I have a letter, can I give it to you guys?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I want to see it all.
Hopefully I read enough.
We can share it. Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was just gonna ask if she represents an organization or
I'm a Milano teacher.
you're a Milano teacher.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here, I'm a fifth grade teacher at Milano and have been for 17 years. And I'm just here to share my experience at Camp Tamarack, because I just feel like you guys need to know about it. And I have a hard time speaking in public, so just hold tight, if you will. So I have the letter, so.
Okay.
All right, in the fall of 2022, my teaching partner Jennifer and I, along with our principal Elise Hall, heard about an incident with another school that had pulled their students from Camp Tamarack before staying even one night due to mixed gender cabin assignments. We collectively decided to see how this shook out and see if the issues they faced would resolve themselves prior to our trip. Later in the year, it was time to start preparing for our outdoor school experience. In the office, among a room full of staff, the idea of having a meeting with the director of the camp and our parents was suggested by myself. We had done this in the past, and the idea was quickly dismissed by both Elise and my partner, stating that what more do the parents need to know other than the packing list? Many weeks passed, and the permission slips started trickling in. However, there were a few that did not come in, and these were very organized and diligent parents. So I reached out and learned that it was because these parents were concerned about encountering the same problems as the school in the fall of 2022 had dealt with, mixed gender cabins. Eventually, the permission slips all came in and all was good. Later, I discovered that one parent was reassured by Elise that no, she could not guarantee that her child might be placed in a mixed cabin, but that yes, the teachers could pull them out. This was relayed and verified by 4 of other staff in the office. As part of our preparation, my partner and I were given a document to create boys and girls cabins assignments based on the safety and preferences of our students. Our goal was to ensure that all students would experience safe and successful time away from home. We arrived at Camp Tamarack approximately 10 a.m. on the 8th. After doing some welcoming activities with campers, the counselors, high schoolers on up assigned cabins. Our students marched off with their cabin counselors, high schoolers. Throughout the day, we were part of the activities, but in the background, observing and making sure that once again, all was going well with our campers. Later that night, counselors led students to campfire, where the cabins introduced themselves with a call or a quick skit. It was at this time that I confirmed that our cabin of 8 boys had a counselor who did not present as a male. Although the boys had referred to one of their counselors as a her, I was unable to determine who this person might be. It wasn't until the campfire that the identity of the non-binary individual was observed. At this time, my teacher, Jennifer, and I became concerned. We knew how some of her parents felt about this. Jennifer, my partner, was texting our concerns to Elise, looking for how to resolve this. With no direction, we contacted the camp director, Charlie. He quickly and adamantly stated that he would not pull a counselor out of the cabin, and parents ultimately knew when signing the permission slip this could be a possibility. So we hung up the phone and called our principal, Elise. She quickly called around Superintendent Mann, Kathleen, looking for direction. Finally, about 10 p.m., she got back to us with no clear recommendations on how to deal with this. We let Elise know that we would just be calling all 8 parents to inform them of the facts and proceed from there. I have to stop.
How much more do you have? Just give us a quick summary.
Okay. basically, my students, I called the parents said, please pull them out of the cabin, that's not what we signed up for, and I quickly did it, and pulled them out of the cabin, put them back the next morning, it was no problem. But when I got back from our camp, I was, basically interrogated about that I discriminated, and then I was also told later that I was going to be charged with insubordination because Elise told everybody that she had told us not to take the kids out of the cabin, which was not true. Not one time did she say we couldn't take the kids out of the cabin. So I did what the parents had asked me to do. I now have to go through training mandated by Mr. Mann, that I have to go through training because I have biases and I am, just have discriminated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
We have Ron Gray. Ron Gray?
Hello, all the school board members aren't here, so the questions that I wanted to ask is for all the school board members. And, the only other thing is I've been on vacation and I still want to discuss, make an appointment with you. So, it's my fault that I haven't made it yet, but I still, planning to, it might be, like I said, my son's out of school, I'm doing stuff with him. And that's all I have to ask you guys tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Appreciate it. Casey Stafford?
Okay, so I don't speak well either, so bear with me if I get shaky voice, but I am here, the outdoor school situation. My son was in Mrs. Tate's class, and when the sign-up sheet to be able to go around, I have heard some rumors about there's a possibility of same-sex cabin, or opposite sex being in a cabin with my son, which is not something that our family is comfortable with to begin with. And so immediately I went and spoke to Principal Elise and asked, what's going on with this? Is this true? And if it is true, what kind of a guarantee can I have that my son won't be placed in a cabin with someone of the opposite sex? And she said that there wouldn't be a guarantee, but she did tell me and assured me that if he was placed in that cabin or in a cabin with someone of the opposite sex, that he would be able to be removed from that cabin. So with that guarantee, I went ahead and said, okay, let's go ahead and let him go. So around 10 o'clock or so, the first night, I got a phone call from Mrs. Tate. And she started off, before she said anything, she said, I am calling you with the facts. And the facts are that there is a female counselor in your son's cabin. And she was wanting to know what I would like for them to do. And I asked that he, yes, please be removed from the cabin, because I was not comfortable with that, my family's not comfortable with that, and I know that he would not be comfortable with that either, which is the most important part. The next day, apparently after he got home, he filled me in on a lot of stuff. And the first thing that he actually told me when he got off of the school bus is he gave me a hug. He said, Mom, there was a girl in my cabin. There was a lot of weird people there, and we have a lot to talk about. And for my fifth grader that loves outside, that loves being with his friends, to say that first thing, that's all he said to me. Not, I had so much fun, nothing like that. But he told me that the next day they filled out cards that the camp gave out to describe how they felt about their counselors. And he said that he felt like the one counselor is coming from a child, but he felt the person was weird and he felt uncomfortable. So he was expressing, he's a very sweet child and he's never going to say anything to anybody's face, but whenever he was asked by card, he gave his feelings. So the option to take him from that cabin, I think, was the best decision ever. And, whenever everything got back and he told me more about it, I just am kind of appalled at the decision that we even decided to send our district to this camp, because it was so much more than just that. But I am in support of what the teachers did, and I hope that possibly we could reconsider any kind of a mark or a strike against our teachers,
Yes,
file.
you did really well. Thank you so much. Jarvis? Darius? Oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy Lanahan, sorry.
Close.
Good evening, Director.
What is it that you wrote, Jimmy? I don't even know what this is about.
I don't have anything to say about outdoor school, but I have some other stuff to talk about. I want to express my dissatisfaction and concern about the cancellation of freshman academy at the high school. I have an autistic son that's getting ready to go into the high school. And with that not happening, I have a meeting on the 22nd with the SPED department. So hopefully there'll be some kind of first steps. But I'm very concerned about just sending my son to such a large complex without him even knowing the footprint, without all of that. That's one thing. And this is not just special education students. With our freshmen having such a hard time, I think it would be very important to have that week or some semblance of foot through the door. Next, and maybe this is jumping the gun, but in our May work session, I brought up the lack of wheelchair access at Parks Elementary. We did a remodel in 2019. It is my understanding that when we do a remodel and report, that there's some type of ORS or building code that requires us to put wheelchair access in. There was a student last year that was in a motorized chair, and they had a lot of trouble getting in. Now, so I drove by the school yesterday to check and see if that work had been done. It has not been done yet. It does appear possibly that more gravel has been put in, but the problem with gravel is gravel sinks, and it's right in front of where the bus is pulling. With school approaching so quickly, I'm concerned that that student will probably face the same situation that they did last year. I urge you guys to come up with a plan to rectify that situation. Lastly, I want to thank the board for allowing me to participate on the bond committee. I feel very positive. We have one more meeting. I know they're going to be bringing you guys a draft proposal at our work session. But I look forward to the next part where we get it done. We get approval of our committee.
November.
Yeah, that's all I have for you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Larissa? Yeah, thank you. You know, you pronounce your last name.
Senior. It's
Senior,
okay, nobody
okay.
can pronounce
All
it.
right.
I go by my first name.
Okay,
All right, so I'm gonna read also.
okay, that's it.
So I'm also here to support Miss Tate, an amazing teacher. My son was in her fifth grade class. First, I would like to thank her for her thoughtfulness and kindness and treating her class like her own children, especially when she took the whole class and parents weren't there to be with them or make right choices for them. We appreciate the openness and the will allowing me as a parent to make decisions for my child when I was not present. So I got a phone call at 11:30 p.m. to inform me of a situation that we were not notified and that we were not comfortable that the cabin was a mixed gender. I asked her to pull my child out because she just informed me of it and I made the decision. I only later found out that Mrs. Tate was being interrogated and punished for the informing the parents. I even got a phone call from the principal the next day, just to review the phone call, and I also thanked her for Mrs. Tate's, what she did, and I told her that I appreciated it, and Elise agreed, and there was no, conflict or anything like that, so I didn't know that, that Mrs. Tate went against her, which this is new to everybody. So I do appreciate that we're able to make the decision for our children. So I'm here to thank Mrs. Tate for her support of our children's rights and mine as a parent. And in no way should she be punished or reprimanded for this because she did the right thing. Thank you for you guys' time. Thank you again, Mrs. Tate. We appreciate and love you.
You're wonderful. Thank you. And I just wanted to let y'all know, yes, one,
Charles Street directors at your pleasure,
okay.
typically wouldn't respond to public comment. I would hold my comment for the superintendent's report to end, but given the fact that there are a number of folks here tonight who have questions or concerns around outdoor school, I'm happy to speak to that now. Because I would, instead of speaking to it during my superintendent's report, that way folks will have to stay for a full evening.
Okay.
If that's,
Yeah.
if that's all right with the board.
It's fine with me, I just wondered if there were more people that had comments first before.
I think the public comment cards have all been expended.
Yeah, I've got them all.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so, again, typically we respond to public comment, and in terms of the event associated with outdoor school, what I will say is that I became aware that we have parents who wish to have their students, not in that cabin, and I understand that. I think it was Ms. Stafford who said the experience of her son, and the experience of the students, and their perspective is in fact what's most important. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. This is the way that this played out in terms of our relationship with Camp Tamarack did not align with my expectations and my communications. I won't go into what at the end of the day is a personnel matter that would be inappropriate for me to discuss a personnel matter tonight. I will say that I've been in Ms. Tate's classroom a number of times. She's a terrific teacher. And the staff, the parents describe her as thoughtful and caring. I absolutely have that same take. But as this situation goes, I'm not going to speak to the personnel matter that's anything that would be inappropriate. What I will say is that subsequent to this event, which played out and did not match my expectations and the way it played out all the way around, nor do I think it matched the expectations of many parents in our community. I have had some direct conversations with the director of Camp Tamarack, and I have next week scheduled an appointment with Oregon State University director of all outdoor schools in Oregon to express my concern around the way this played out from Malala, so that no circumstance like this has to happen again for any school or student in the community. I think for a student to say, I'm not comfortable sleeping in a cabin with someone who clearly identifies as the opposite gender is a fair thing for that student to feel. Absolutely fair thing. I'm so sad that this played out this way. As a district, we did quite a bit behind the scenes to assure that our students' experience would not be a match with what the Culver School District experienced. Outdoor school is such a wonderful experience, and my expectation for the director of Camp Tamarack at the time was that the sole focus of the work for our students be on the science curriculum that is outdoor school and the mission of outdoor school. And when there's a circumstance that clearly presents itself in a way that requires a student developmentally to respond with discomfort, I'm not going to resolve this here tonight, but I want the board to know, I want the parents who are here to know that this did not play out the way that the superintendent expected. And my conversation with Oregon State University's director of state outdoor schools next week will reflect that. We've had some conversations around what does outdoor school look like in the future for our students. Every student deserves to feel safe, respected and cared for. And I believe it when I hear that certain students didn't feel respected, certain families didn't feel respected because of the way that the counselor presented visibly at camp. It's fair for individuals to say that they didn't feel respected and that it didn't align with the way that they see the world. am I gonna resolve what at the end of the day is an issue that doesn't exist here solely in the law, but exists across the country right now? I am not gonna resolve it, but I have an expectation that the Malala River School District and our parents never, ever experience again what the children and families of the 8 who chose to remove their children from that academy. Some chose to stay, some chose to move. They're all entitled to their position. I do not ever want to put a parent in a situation where they have to choose to remove their child from what should be a terrific learning environment. I'd stand behind everything I said here tonight. Our primary objective is our students, not the staff, not anyone else as a service provider, but our students. If students that feel comfortable, it's a fair place to land, a fair place for a parent to make a decision. I won't speak, however, to what at the end of the day is a separate personnel matter.
So what I was gonna say, he's gonna be talking to the University of Oregon about the outdoor camps.
The state director of.
Yeah, the state director, yeah, of the outdoor schools. And hopefully we can get this resolved, maybe look at some other outdoor schools. Because if we'd known this was gonna be a problem, we would not have voted, yeah, go ahead and send your children, you know what I mean? That's not where I was at. Did you have something?
Well, this isn't on the agenda. Yes, I do have something. This is the second time, without speaking of the personal matter, this burden of proof on the impact versus the intent and being directed by Oregon Department of Education is backwards. And I think, I'd like to know how we can lobby to have that standard changed. Because to me, that's patently unfair.
I agree. On concept, on principle, and that'll be my position when I'm meeting with Oregon State University next week.
But so I guess our only recourse is Oregon Department of Education, that means the governor, if we want to change that standard. Because if we're gonna have this standard, then anything can become a violation, and people are gonna get treated unfairly. Maybe this is not a school board issue, it's a state politics issue.
My hope is that I might be able to, in good faith, represent the community in that conversation, represent my core values in that conversation as well with Oregon State University, and report back to the board on the substance of that conversation in a couple of weeks once I've had that meeting. I don't know if that.
It does, I'm almost thinking as a board, you know, we also have Jim Green, and we still get communications from OSBA.
Yeah.
This seems to be something they ought to be advocating for.
It ought to be something they're advocating, but I can tell
But
you
they're
from
not.
past experience, Jim Green will not advocate
No,
that
he's
policy. There was an issue in another school district where he advocated exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say that is not a place where we're
He
gonna
is
find
not
any help from him or the USBA.
We had a student drug through the mud over the same standard, this unfair standard, just a couple years ago. And I'm concerned it's gonna keep happening. It doesn't teach responsibility. If somebody's triggered by something, that's their responsibility, it's not the intent. Okay. Thanks for
I'm sorry, Mark, I fully agree with you.
And what I think I heard you say, Director Luke, is the impact is what matters.
Intent.
Intent.
Okay. If somebody is offended, it comes down to the intent, in my mind. Otherwise, you can unfairly call anybody anything and say, I'm offended, and we're ODE's going to start training with OSA suspension.
Do we know that?
And it's not fair and
Understand.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Board members are speaking. I'm glad to respond to any questions. I would like to be able to report back to the board on the substance of my meeting with OSU and the director of Camp Tamarack, Director Show, who's gonna join me at that, if I remember correctly from our academy meeting this morning, but either Director Show or Director Ellis is gonna join me in that meeting. And I'd be glad to meet with, and I've met with some parents of Lyme Elementary School as well on this, already. And I'd be glad to continue to communicate directly with Lyme parents as well. Or any parents, any stakeholders.
I think a big resolution to this would be a lot of parents going to our legislation and talking to these people that are passing these laws that tie board members' hands on the policies that come down from on high. So we need to start looking at legislation, ridiculous legislation that's being passed.
I think it's important to bring up, and I'm gonna bring it up because it was brought up previously at a board meeting, is we knew about the Colbert School District.
Yeah.
Before we sent the kids, or before the decision was made to send the kids. And Mr. Mann did reach out to them. We made it very clear that we didn't want this situation to happen, that happened. And so we're extremely disappointed that things played out the way they did, because we would not have, they knew how we felt about the situation, and it was clearly brought to their attention. So just know that it wasn't just a quick decision that was made that, oh, we don't really care what happened. There was intent there to change the situation, and unfortunately, things didn't change. So, moving forward, we'll see other options and have other discussions.
What Amy said back at that meeting, or the one board meeting when we talked about Tamarack, we were guaranteed that this wouldn't happen. They told us they would work, that we would not end up with that situation that the other school did, and here we are. Second, I'd like to say this, Tate, it sounds like you're a wonderful teacher, and so I'm really sorry that this has affected you this way. It's obviously that it's hurt you, and I think the whole board here, all of us are sorry for that.
Thank you so much for coming. I think so. And I'll read through all of your information. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, anytime. All right, are there any changes to the agenda? Yes, Amy.
Looking for, I think we already removed the yellow. Okay. Madam Chair, I move to have 2D1 superintendent evaluation on the list, be right under consent agenda.
Second.
Is that okay because it's information discussion? Can we still move it under action items?
Is it an action item?
Yeah, it's under action, but
Is it something
we're not
we
really
should take
doing
action
action down. No, but we're just gonna move
Just
in.
put it at the top of information and discussion,
Okay, it is at the top.
right there, Barbara.
Yeah, I want to get him right at the top. It's not an action item, but he needs to get going. So
Oh,
I'm gonna go ahead
Can
and
we
move it
do-
from information and discussion on top of the action item. Can I do that?
Is it an action item? That's what
No,
I,
it is not.
I mean, you can, you move it anywhere you want. but
Okay,
it's
that's
feel
what I'm
like-
gonna do.
okay, I move that we move 2D1 superintendent evaluation just below consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor,
Oh,
raise your right arm.
okay, now I get it. I'm sorry, I was misreading.
Okay, are you raising your
Yes,
right arm?
I'm
Okay, it's unanimous, six, yes, okay, anyone opposed? Nope. Any abstention? Nope, okay, 6-0, passed. Come on down, Craig McHenry.
Oh, actually, you said right below the consent agenda, so that means the consent agenda is next. So Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved to approve the consent agenda, all those in favor? Raise your right arm, good, okay, it's unanimous, 6. Now,
Now it's great.
now it's Craig's turn, sorry, Craig.
Good to see you again.
Yeah,
I've seen you
good
for
to see
about a year. Well, Rob's, excuse me, my name is Greg McKenzie. I'm a consultant who's assisted the board with a lot of things over the last few years, and one of them is superintendent evaluation. We did this last year at about the same time, and I got a call from Lori. Got a chance to be your new board secretary, Lori. And she asked that I come and present to you a proposal to go forward with superintendent evaluation for the superintendent's evaluation for the past school year, the one that ended on June 30th. It's probably a little later in the year than we would like to have done it, but this is 12 months after we did it last time. So I would propose that we follow the same model we used before, which is one, collect some 360-degree information from the administrators, supervisors, senior leadership group, and then present that to you to take a look. There's a questionnaire we've been using, and we've been collecting some linear information about that for a long time, so we can trend it, share that with you, and then let you do your own evaluation, all online. I use SurveyMonkey for the purpose of collecting that information and then report it back to you at a board meeting. So since school is not in session, and we found from prior experience that it's better and easier to get a hold of people and get them to do things after school starts and they're back in their buildings. I have a proposed calendar that I will send to Lori that she can circulate to all of you, that would basically start on August 31st for collecting the information from the small leadership group, the 360 feedback it's called, and do that for about 2 weeks. School getting started is a pretty exciting but yet stressful time, so we'll give them a couple of weeks to respond, and then report back to you at your September 28th board meeting, which would then kick off your time to prepare your own evaluation. This is one component of what you need to consider for evaluating the superintendent's performance. Others are financial reports, your own observations, things that have gone on during the course of the year, reports that Superintendent Mann has given to you. But this is some feedback that would be a component of that superintendent evaluation. And I'll give you more information as we go along the process. If you want to follow the calendar that I believe is a reasonable and workable calendar, I will be back to you at your October 26th board meeting with the report from your own evaluation compilation, and then you can take it from there and prepare any narrative or whatever you do to put in the personnel file. In all, that takes about 6 weeks. So I know that's more than 6 weeks from now, but from beginning to end of the process, it would be about 6 weeks, starting on August 31st and ending on October 26th. Well, actually, about 7 or 8 weeks. But I think that's reasonable, and I would propose that, if that's okay with you. So basically following the model we used last year. I know Rob wasn't involved in that, but it'd be the same thing we've done before. That sound okay? I don't need action, I just kind of need nods of the head and say, yeah, let's do it then.
Yes.
Are there any questions at all? Rob, do you have any questions? Because you're new here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I'll fill you in as we go along, so that you feel comfortable with the process. Yeah, it's information gathering online so that the Excel spreadsheets can compile all the information, and I can bring it back to you and report it back to you. And then I will see you then probably on September 28th would be my next meeting with you. I'll coordinate with Lori about all of that. So any questions? I'll get the calendar to her. She'll get that out to you, and then you'll know what the timetable is for.
Great report. We're looking forward to seeing you again.
So I'm taking off this hat.
Yes.
I'm putting on my Clackamas ESD board chair hat.
Okay.
For years, Ralph Durkee was on our board budget committee. And as you know, Ralph has passed. And we have a vacancy on our committee. We can only get other board members in our component districts as committee members for the budget committee. So I would encourage any of you who are just interested in the nitty-gritty, nuts and bolts, dollars and Excel spreadsheets that go along with budgeting to assist us with our budget committee and take Ralph's course, basically. So
Thank you.
that's my pitch. I'm sure that our superintendent's going to be asking you the same thing. I'm here. Might as well give it a shot too.
Well, thank you.
And did I say that we give fabulous prizes? The money is great.
Oh, yes.
The issues are exciting.
Oh, I know. That's what keeps us coming back.
Right.
So if I volunteer, can I get a 100% raise over what Ralph got?
I'll go one better, 150%.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
See all of you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Greg. And welcome aboard, Lori.
Right, okay, next is 2C2, Malala High School closed campus proposal. David Atherton.
Chair Etheridge, the directors, I'll provide just a little bit of context for everyone. Folks will remember that at the last couple of public meetings, I shared some data, some concerns around the impact of open campus at our high school, none of which was a criticism on our students. Our students are awesome. What happens at our high school is fantastic. And I've asked Dr. Atherton to come back in and respond to some of the questions that board members had, because I'm not close enough to the daily routine. I was able to talk about it from an elevation of 10,000 feet to get closer to some data. I've also shared with the board a piece of research on safety associated with outdoor schools. And so that's in your material for your review at your leisure. But I've asked Dr. Atherton to share kind of what his experience has been leading up to this request on my part, with which I'm making the request that the board act to close our high school campus. And ask Dr. Atherton to provide some more detail. Both of us be glad to respond to any questions. I want to advocate for Dr. Atherton as well. He has an 8 o'clock hard stop, as he has an obligation to be at the airport picking someone up here this evening. So 8 o'clock.
I'm watching the traffic flow, so yeah, should be in that part. Well, Board Chair, thank you. Directors appreciate the opportunity to give a little more context. Obviously, this is a important issue. During my interview with the students for this position, it was one of the first questions that I was asked about my stance on off-campus policy. I took a political dodge on that one and said, well, you know, I would need to know more about that situation, and I'm not close to it, but I would. So after a year of watching this and learning more about how historically it came forward, it was student initiated, strongly researched by them, and a lot of the input, and from what I've heard, pretty spectacular job by some of the students who were involved. This little pandemic thing happened and kind of everything changed. And so I think since that time, some of the context have changed, and that's, I think, what I'd like to share with you. Specifically, the students who, this was kind of their brainchild, so to speak, as they moved along, that institutional knowledge and that culture didn't transfer down to the juniors and the sophomores and the freshmen. And so what we experienced last year was not an earned privilege, which is what I think the board granted at the time, but now it's perceived as a right, an expectation. And it's not a junior-senior issue, it's a 9-12 issue that we've been experiencing. So as we're also looking at this coming back from the pandemic, we're seeing the attendance across the nation. That's a hot topic, that students aren't going to school, staying in school. And we've observed that as well with just kind of revolving doors all day long. So this idea that our campus is now open means it's open at any time. That obviously has some implications for us and some concerns. First and foremost, I think our students aren't connected back to our school, and they're not really engaging in what it means to be part of Malala, what it means to be academic, and how they're getting those life skills that they need to be successful at the next level. Additionally, you know, the issue of safety is more of a visible concern now across the country as well, internationally. So New Dawn, when they did their interview with the school, we were talking through the different kind of catch points and concerns. That was one of his questions, is do you have an open campus? I said, for lunch, yes, we do. And that's a red flag on a security level as well. It's just harder to maintain who's coming in, who's going out, as well as the liability of what could potentially happen when the students are under our direct supervision and support. We have an obligation of door-to-door service. And even though a parent may excuse their student to leave, there's a number of things that can happen there. If another student who doesn't have permission jumps in that car, again, 54 doors, we can't watch them all. And they hop in that car and something happens with that student, we all incur a liability as a school district there. And that's something to really strongly consider. The other piece I think is, you know, we can't guarantee safety all the time, but when we're looking at this there's a difference between safety in the cafeteria when we're there with them, we're talking with them, we're interacting and developing relationships. And when that student is in a car and they're off campus, there's a number of your potential threats increase. So that's a reality. So as we look at this mindset now, kind of the students can come and go, and you know, well, I was gathered, I took school for 18 months online. I don't really need to be here. And we need to change that mindset and bring our students back in and really start getting them re-engaged with school. And I believe this is one of those things. My staff has also expressed this, I'm speaking for them as well, that we need to move forward with that. Other changes that have occurred since that point, I don't know how many of you have driven through Malala lately. It's not hard to miss some of those main thoroughfares, and there's more traffic, and there's more construction, there's more barriers. And so for a student to make it from the back of the school in the academic wing, drop by their locker, pick something up, get with a friend, get in a car, make it off campus. Most of them are going over to Taco Bell, those areas, and then try to get back within that half-hour period. It's just not happening. It's not physically possible to sit in that line at Taco Bell. If you're at the end of the line there, you're gonna be late. So then the students come in late, and we're talking 15 minutes late. They're entering class. That's a disruption. The teacher has to stop. They have to read the open rule back up. So that's a distraction from instruction. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was high school, I would eat absolutely anything. And if somebody else was eating it, I wanted to eat it too. So I would have been looking at bean burritos and not trigonometry. Okay, let's be honest, I didn't take trigonometry. So I think you have to kind of mix those things up and look at what this is doing with the larger piece. Now the teachers are having to battle with that. You know, kid accidentally spills the pop, our desks are not made to have lunches in like that. So there's a number of other pieces that we have concerns there. So when we look at that, you know, how do we work with these students? They're not checking back in the office. And we also have students, I have teachers telling me that the students know exactly what's going on. They get a text, oh, hey, I gotta go to the bathroom. And that student's gone. They're hopping in, skipping the rest of the fourth period, missing math with Dr. Van Dyne. And now they're going to lunch with somebody. And I'll remind you that Dr. Van Dyne is primarily a freshman math teacher. So when she says that these students are leaving, they're not supposed to be leaving. It's hard for us to manage. So to kind of put this into perspective, we had 127 students who signed up for an off-campus pass. Their parents approved it. It was granted, it was okay. And they had that permission. There's a lot more students than leaving that in our two lunches, and beyond the juniors and seniors. So an example of what we're having to respond to at the school level is a father showed up, checked his daughter out, and called class, she's not there. He says, what do you mean she's not here? Well, let me text you. Where are you at? I'm in math class. Campus monitor went down to math class. She's not here, Atherton. Turned around to him, I was like, look, sir, I'm sorry, maybe she's somewhere else. Well, she's saying she's in math class. Moments later, she walks in the front door, bag of McDonald's, freshman student, senior male, got in the car. He turned around and said, how did you let my daughter get in a car with him and leave? That's a tough place to be in. That puts our staff, not just me, I can answer some hard questions. That one I don't have an answer for, other than we have an expectations. The students know what the expectation is, and we'll have to talk about that more. So those are the kind of things that we're faced with here. When we look at that culture and climate also, when we take our upperclassmen out of the cafeteria area, we lose a couple key things. First of all, that norming behavior that happens between a senior and a freshman, and I'm not talking about bullying, I'm talking about when you walk into an area and you think, I have a choice how I'm gonna behave. Am I gonna behave like a middle schooler, or am I seeing how this is done in a cafeteria, and it's quiet, people are cleaning up after themselves, and they're being respectful, and they're forming relationships, I'm gonna probably do that too, and culture perpetuates itself. But when you pull some of these upperclassmen out, they're not modeling that appropriate behavior any longer. So They're also, when you take some of our best students, and we have awesome kids who are doing the right thing, they've got their pass, they're doing absolutely everything, their attendance is good, they're doing their best to get back, they're apologizing if they aren't, they might even be getting an unexcused pass. But when they get back into the situation, what we missed was that was just maybe our ASB leaders, activity leader, and maybe we didn't have something that could have occurred, some sort of culture building, team building, could have been cornhole out in the courtyard area. Those are the type of things that breaks up that monotony of lunch, perhaps, but gets kids interacting with each other, gets them up, gets them involved, and finds other things. So that's another kind of one of those things that we didn't probably think about when we first made this decision, but we're seeing that now. But the last piece here, and I don't have specific data that I can necessarily always tag to this, but we've seen an increase in drug and alcohol incidents and issues in the afternoon. So can I directly say that's because somebody went and got in their car and came back? I don't necessarily know if it's causality, but I think there's a correlation there, that we could say that the possibility to bring something back from lunch is not unrealistic. Community impact also has been something we've had to face. We've had a number of calls this year from community members and students over at Clark's Park. So they're not out getting lunch, they're just going out and hanging out. And those reports have been fighting. Those reports have been vaping, smoking, drugs and alcohol. Some of those calls come back to the school. Some of those calls go to PD. And quite honestly, that's a community safety issue when we're asking, and I'm having to talk to Officer, I'm sorry, I'm so used to calling him Jamil. Talking with Officer Kasab and asking, hey, can you talk with, Lieutenant and say, hey, we're having this, can we have some people maybe swing by? Police officers gave no tickets last year, unless it was really egregious. Their job is to try to form those relationships and reteach students so that they can be good community members. But that was getting difficult to do, especially then when Officer Kasab had an unfortunate basketball game against the fire department, during Share the Love. That took him out of the SRO role for a while, so we were down that as well. And if you take a couple key people for the safety and security of the school out of that equation, that's really challenging then for us to provide that to the community as well as the school. The final piece here, I think, to look at is, the business, kind of anecdotal. We haven't had anybody directly call us, but Officer Kasab's had this, and we've had some teachers that come back and even some kids that the long line, kids hurrying, hey, hurry up, I gotta get back to math. Okay, nobody wanted to get back to math, I'm sorry. A few kids. But kids wanting to, get their food, and they get rowdy. They're getting antsy. And so some of those behaviors, leaving trash there, et cetera, that has impacted. And I don't necessarily know if it's getting the best bang for the buck in terms of supporting local businesses. I'm not sure if that's actually everything that they want. And that would be something I think we could gather more information on. So what we've done with this in the past, over the course of last year, as this became a problem, I communicated directly with ASB and the leadership teacher, the executive team. We met, we talked about it. Our main thing there at that point at the beginning of the year was, hey, we got a lot of people who are leaving who shouldn't be leaving. And then leadership went into every homeroom. They represented the expectations. Here's who can go. They appealed to their upperclassmen colleagues to do the right thing, to follow this, to get a permit, with the understanding of, hey, if we don't do this right, we lose the privilege. Some kids did exactly what they were supposed to do. We even had some kids who came in and got a permit after that. A large number of students continue to do the same thing. So as we look at that, their efforts then to tackle the trash, they said, hey, we'll get a couple extra trash cans. We're going to put them out in the parking lot, and we'll get trash cleaned up. That was short-lived. About the same time that the rain came in. ASB was not real wild about going out and cleaning up the trash. That now becomes a custodial workload issue as they're having to work in a larger piece. So we came back together, we talked about different opportunities there. And quite frankly, we didn't have a solution for it. And we we continue to have kind of some of that issue. So a lot of that, Cowboy Coffee, McDonald's, Taco Bell, other areas, those wrappers, those cups end up back in the parking lot. Final piece to this is what has staff done as we try to do that. They're having the conversations with the students who are coming in late. They're encouraging them to do the right thing. Hey, if this happens again, we're gonna have to follow progressive discipline with this. You understand that, and have to, contact your parents. So they're doing that one-on-one. Continues to happen. They're contacting the parents, they're leaving a message. Not all parents, but a fair amount. The staff is not hearing back, and it's kind of a non-issue for parents, where I think for some of them, they're like, maybe not concerned, I'm not sure. So there's no response there. Not where we want to be on referrals to the office. That's not where we want to be with student discipline, because it's an automatic fight with the student. Even though we try to take that as a teaching moment, we're not looking to suspend kids for doing this. So to redirect that, we tried to put in lunch detention. And the students decided not to go to lunch detention because they would miss their lunch off campus, that they didn't have permit to go off campus for. So now we're into that vicious cycle of the same argument, and quite frankly, the students were like, I don't care. So the expectation versus the earned privilege was back again. Administratively, we communicated to families the concerns, some of the things we were seeing, asked for their support, asked for them to have the conversations. But again, we just didn't see that shift. So I'm not sure the exact final number, but we ended up somewhere around 72-73% of our students last year were attending 90% of the time. And that's down substantially overall, I would say, from I think it was the upper 80s, low 90s when they first came and presented this to you. As we look at that kind of overall, we've talked with other schools, closed campuses. I think Canby's the only one who has an open campus because they literally can walk across the street. And it is open to only walking, not driving. We will continue to have conversations with our students and our leadership, about the why, and, communicate the rationale, the reasons. At some point, if your feedback is for us to gather specific things or to, look at something, obviously we can take those recommendations back and employ those as well.
And balancing against this request as well is an expectation that we have that our relationship with Sodexo really result in a much higher gain in terms of the quality and the presentation of food service. I met with the regional director of Sodexo today and our district level director in what will be a monthly meeting from here forward. Additionally, in the meeting today, we talked about having a high school student advisory meeting with Sodexo, providing feedback on how we make sure our food is compelling and attractive. And Dr. Atherton's talking about all of the pro-social activity that can happen during lunch that builds community, builds a reason for it. Why would I want to leave school when I've got these, fun activities and food that is tasty and attractive? So it is my humble request tonight that the board act to discontinue the open campus this year. I'll ask Dr. Atherton to work with leadership if that's the will of the board and move this forward in a way that is respectful of kids, because kids are kids. This isn't because our kids did bad things, it's because the circumstances are such that it's not tenable in our community for all the reasons that Dr. Atherton described.
Thank you. And when those students presented their case, I was persuaded to go to open campus, and the concerns that, as I recall from the fellow board members, were around, will this impact student performance? Will this impact student safety? Well, I'm hearing performance is already down because of COVID. This made it worse. And I'm hearing about student safety, and frankly, I share the concern about drugs and alcohol. This last year, for the first time, when I spend time in town, I can see drug deals happening in places I wouldn't expect to see it, including near the high school. So as much as I admire those students, it was under the umbrella that the students would police it to make sure safety was compromised and keep standards up. But in my mind, safety and student achievement are what we're here for. So I support not closing the campus.
Yeah, that's great.
I just wondered, in the conversation, that we had the last time, we had some other sort of, what I felt like were good sort of con arguments that were brought up. But what I've heard tonight, well, I won't say it's changed my mind. I kind of wonder, it's like we have two options. We can either keep it open or we can close it. And I wonder if there's some other place, if you guys have thought about any alternatives, in terms of an absolute closure versus absolutely keeping it open. Is there some other alternative that would sort of benefit the students, make them feel less like, they've done something awful or whatever? I mean, however you want to put that, I mean, there are 1,000 ways to put it, versus also, that might address some of the things that you guys are concerned about.
We've had some contemplation that, again, right here, right now, my concern is around safety and it's that we need to regroup here. At the same time, we've had some conversation around engaging in discussion with student leadership about how do we, what could we, with the students who are there today, as opposed to remaining a space where it's an entitlement and it wasn't really, these weren't the students that pre-pandemic came in so beautifully, presented. These are the students that we have today, and they're wonderful adolescents, but it's a different context. And so, to answer your question directly, I think we can have, I would ask Dr. Adler to have those conversations. I don't believe we should start, personally, I do not believe we should start this school year with the open campus. We should close and then have those conversations, else we have a full year of open campus. We'll move into the school year. If we start day one with an open campus, it will need to remain that way for the year. Yeah. Culture.
Roach is there.
We can't do that. We can't do that because of SEDEX, the grant money for lunches and stuff. They do have a question for you. When you talk about the drugs and alcohol, are these kids being treated by EMS, police? Are they just coming to school, like going out at lunch, doing their stuff and coming home? Or not coming home, but coming back to school? But is there treatment with, are they having interaction with EMS and police?
We haven't had any, thankfully, we haven't had EMS issues. That's scary.
Yeah, it is.
I've done that other places, we haven't seen that. Don't want to. I think along the lines of, we have had situations where students have come back and been in the possession through consumption or just drunk. And, Officer Saab has managed that. Some of those have resulted in MIPs. Depending on situation, context, all of those things, we do have leeway on the situation. And it's not always a black and white, like, yes, he's citing. So I would say those are, he's heavy on the resource and less on the officer. That's how he describes it. And so if we have a student that we know has alcohol or is under the influence, he is involved with it at some level. Our problem is, for example, custodians come through at the end of the day, and we see a large amount of, the airplane bottles, as well as, various cans or bottles of alcohol. So there's a lot of students, dropping those things off that we aren't necessarily coming in contact with. And that is not them being their best self in school, ready to learn and positive engagement. So that's the larger concern, I think, is that do we have students who chemically aren't at a point necessarily that they might be forming long-term dependencies. And maybe they're not falling down drunk and causing attention to it, but the long-term impact of that is huge.
So what is the impact of students prior to open campus? And it might not be for you to say because you weren't here during that time, but if you were to take that data from the year before or maybe 4 years before the virus, to current.
Yeah.
It's like, is that parallel?
It's an increase.
It's an increase with an open
Absolutely,
campus.
and an increase specifically in the afternoons.
Okay. And then the other was any car wrecks?
we've not had, again, thankfully, we haven't been in a situation with any car wrecks. We've had some close calls. Officer Gazab has cited a couple for reckless driving. And those were pretty extreme cases. But again, we don't want to get to that position. And I think that's where our request comes from. And we don't want to be in a position where we're explaining that to some parent of, we had an opportunity to prevent this and we didn't.
Have you had a student come in drunk enough that they couldn't drive? I'm just curious. Or what?
Yeah, if they're,
Yeah, I know.
anything in their system. You know, I wouldn't be able to answer that right now, like that we know somebody was actually driving under the influence. I can't recall anything specific to that. I would imagine it's happening. Whether it's alcohol or some other substance.
Because you have a hard time getting out, it's 10 after 8, you
Yep.
need to leave. at
I need to probably be heading out here shortly or my life will change drastically.
I would say you should, and I think the
Yeah.
board's will is to come back at the work session, and continue the discussion, we'd be glad to stay in the discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate the information you provided us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to
It's an
present.
eye opener, thank you very much.
you.
All right, appreciate it.
Drive safely.
Yeah, those big guys.
Do we want to put this back, or are we ready for a motion?
I will leave that to my fellow board.
I'm sorry, what, you're gonna
I
refer
will
to
leave that to
your
my fellow board.
I'm sure.
I'm ready.
I mean, I would love to talk about it some more, but it would just be purely or mostly academic. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages.
Madam Chair, I move that we direct administration to proceed with the closed campus proposal for the next school year.
I need a second.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the open campus for lunch.
And I made the motion for the reasons I said to Dr. Etherton. I think we lost traction on student outcomes already because of COVID, and we saw the report cards. We've got to focus on student outcomes. And the student safety thing scares the heck out of me.
That's the main
Those are
thing.
the two main reasons I'm it.
I think if we had restaurants within walking distance, it would probably be a different story.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that our school is not located by restaurants, but maybe in the future. But for now, I think it would be the best decision for the kids for safety reasons. And I think it's a good opportunity for the ASB and leadership to make something fun of it and, you know, get more involved in our food in Sodexo. Which, you know, they're there, we're not, so they can help, you know, keep them accountable to, you know, the things that our students want to eat, so.
Yeah, Craig.
No, just go have lunch there and we can enjoy it too.
Yeah, really.
No, I just want to say that, I support the sort of concept of what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor. But I do feel like, I was gonna say, I feel like that is, the administration ought to do some kind of, further study about maybe some accommodations that could be made. And when I say accommodations, with respect to having a fully open campus. But as I was thinking about this, well, my fellow board members were talking, I thought, well, why should we put the burden on the administration to do that? I think what we ought to do is just put the burden on the administration to encourage the students to see what they can do and make it sort of a student-led effort. That if they're gonna lose their open campus, maybe they can find some things to kind of offset that. Does that make any sense anyway? But yeah, we'll close off the campus right now and I'll vote in favor of this, but it would be nice if we would express to the students that, especially the ones who are probably 90% of the students who are doing what they're supposed to do, and it's getting ruined by the other 10, that hey, we want you to feel valued, and if there are some things that you find important, not just eating the Sodexo lunch or whatever, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, it's just I'm sort of brainstorming here, but that we ought to encourage them to do that and bring back sort of some kind of compromise. some sort of in between. We don't have a fully open campus, we don't have a fully closed campus, you know, what could it look like? I will add to that, just one little quick anecdote, since a lot of this is anecdotal anyway. When my kids were in high school, they had lunch off campus a lot. And it was because they got involved in a lot of activities at the school that allowed them, in fact, required them to leave campus for one thing or another, right? So they'd be like, you know, I've got to go to, you know, such and such a place, maybe it was to the Picker Field or whatever it was for athletics. On the way there, they just whipped through, you know, Cowboy Coffee, right? Or stop at the Chinese place, or not, was it Chinese Mexican? There we go, no. But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, there are some rewards out there for, you know, students who are like super involved, you know, but we gotta find ways to get, you know, give some kind of, incentive to the other kids.
The high schooler in me that always wanted closed, or wanted open campus is screaming, no, keep it open for them, because you wanted that. You know, when I was at school, we may or may not have gone off campus during the closed campus, but we were back in time, you know. We just, you know, usually bribe the teacher with a hamburger or something like that to keep his mouth shut while we do it. You know, but yeah, no, with the way our town is set up right now, closed campus or open campus up there makes no sense, because you've got to drive a mile and a half, and then you've got to be in those lines, and you've got to go to your locker, you've got to all do it. Within that time frame of 30 minutes, it's not doable. It's not doable. In the workforce, I had an hour for a lunch, you know, and it was, you know, tight. It was tight getting from, you know, where I was working to place, get food, get back, you know, in 30 minutes, that's nearly impossible. And like I said, when I was in high school, this was the center of town, and, you know, all of our stuff was close. So it made it easy, you know, I could run out to the back, I could grab, you know, some burritos and JoJo's, or, you know, I could run to me a sandwich shop, which I called her ahead of time, and, you know, she had all of her stuff ready to go. But, you know, it also was a handful of kids versus, you know, 2 full grades. So I'm definitely, it's hard for me to say this, but closed campus doesn't make sense in my opinion.
Okay, any other remarks or questions? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go ahead and close the campus for lunches, and all those in favor, raise your right arm. Okay, it passes unanimously, 6-0. Okay. And anyone opposed? It's 0. Any abstentions? 0. Okay. Going to the motion. All right. Next one is 2C3, OOI contract, recommendation for approval, 20-man.
I'm sorry, did we skip over job descriptions? Did I have a brain cramp, or did we cover the?
I think that was
recommended
the last, that was last week, wasn't it?
approval? I see, am I wrong with agenda? Sorry, I clicked the wrong button.
Oh, I didn't see that, I thought that was last week.
Yeah,
Okay.
IT guy.
Okay. So Tony, go ahead and take it away. OOI.
Sure, OOI, otherwise known as Oregon Outreach, has been a partner with the district for going on 2 decades now, providing opportunity to have an alternative pathway for students to earn an Oregon diploma. This alternative program operates at Wall High School. They are in partnership with other districts in the state as well. I have asked, though we're bringing this forward as we have in the past, asking for the board's approval to approve the contract. Because of the size of it, it does require board approval. I have at the same time asked Dr. Atherton to give consideration over the coming year as to are there more cost-efficient ways to deliver the same type of service ourselves as opposed to contracting the service out. So that may be part of the discussion as we approach this time next year, but for this year, I'm confident this is the right partnership, the right way to provide an alternative pathway for students. I would ask for your approval for the contract.
So we're not gonna go with this?
We are, the request that we move forward with it this year.
You wanna move forward?
And next year, we may move another direction depending on analysis of Dr. Atherton.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the OOI contract as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. All those, any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you explain a little bit more what that entails?
Yeah.
So it's recovery, Oregon Outreach, as an alternative program, I've best described it, even when I think about, my own family members along the way, maybe me at a point too, right, when I was a kid, the round peg, square hole, needs a different kind of support to be able to make it through this turn in adolescence, socially, emotionally, academically. This is an alternative pathway that still provides for an Oregon diploma, does so on a half day, with a lot of more careful one-on-one support in a smaller learning environment with one teacher, a support staff member, a much smaller class size. So like the old alternative school used to be that was in town. Exactly how that.
My daughter did that, her senior year. We moved here from the coast, and everything that she learned on the coast was flip-flop to what she was, so basically she was redoing what she's already done.
Yeah.
So she stepped into OOI graduated early. She was done before Christmas,
Yeah.
so I got her state diploma.
Probably would have been a good thing when I was in school too,
It'll be at the high school.
but it's on the school campus.
Who's the main, contact of the district that works with the OOI team?
So the administrator responsible for supervision is Dr. Atherton and his administrative team. The primary contact, if there's a student or a family who's thinking that this might be something that their child or student would benefit from, is typically the academic counselor. And that process starts with the counselor. There's a screening process as to, is this the right fit for the circumstances? I love that example because it's circumstances for the round peg square hole circumstances, right? Does the rationale fit? And then if it does, according to the standards that are established, in writing on paper through that screening process, the counselor would tentatively approve it, would get the approval of the administrator, and then that student will be transitioned to OOI. So did I answer your question?
And
So
then
principal supervises it, but that counselor is that first point of contact.
is the counselor also checking back in to make sure that they're progressing in the program?
Yes.
It's really kind of nice if the kids struggle in school,
Yeah.
and if they were to stay in mainstream, they probably wouldn't make it through. Like, they just walk away, and then if that opportunity is given to them, they will do the programming because it's critiqued to exactly what they need to do in order to get those credits from the school. So it's super simple.
Right. Moved and seconded. All those, are there any further questions?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I had to move from that.
Yeah.
So, you tell me what the motion was.
It's the OOI contract to approve it.
Okay.
Okay, and that's kind of like a recovery school. Okay, it's in Laurel High School. So are we all ready for a vote? Okay, all those in favor of picking that button? Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, 6 votes, 0. Yes. 0 opposed and 0 abstentions. Now we're into information discussion, facilities and deferred maintenance.
Yes.
Tony Tiano.
Tony Tiana,
Hey, Tony.
just say that, our custodial team's working all summer long, and we actually, expressed our appreciation for our custodial team, and had them all over here outside for shaved ice the other day. Right there, some percent, maybe schools just shut down, and nothing happened in our building for the 8 weeks. There's a bug happening in our building, so.
Piggyback on that, commend the custodians, it's a lot of work, taking all desk, tables, chairs out of every classroom, whether it's carpet, tile, stripping, waxing, it's a lot of work, so commend those folks a lot. It's been a real busy summer so far, obviously it's not over yet, you do have my board report here. I would like to just kind of go to the photos, just to kind of revamp what we kind of talked about at the last meeting. Just some of the stuff that we've actually accomplished with, getting the new dishwasher at the middle school. It's all installed. We've already done a couple dry runs with that. The Malino gym floor, high school gym floor and actually the middle school gym floor has all got scratched, screened, re-waxed. So those are done. Malino, we wound up taking out a lot of toilet partitions that were from 50s or 60s. Real bad shape, a lot of them were broken, some of them didn't smell that great. So they've got brand new partitions. We've got one bathroom left to do in the Boys in the South building, but everything else is done. Also at Malina, we actually started this week, the east side, I don't have a photo, I'll have it next month. The east side of the Malino gym is getting re-sided, it's all been ripped off with tar paper, so it should be done by Friday. And then Lance and I will do some painting on that. We got the Clark's well pump replacement done, that happened just again right after school got out. The pump went out, it could not have happened at a better time. Again, the pump was stamped 1993, so that got us 30 years out of there. The high school, again, I think we talked about bathroom floor replacements. Sounds like we're having a little technical difficulty. Yeah, so we've got new walk-off mats. I think we were talking about, major tripping hazards, so we put new walk-off mats, we were lowering some of the bathrooms, they were starting to peel. Some of the students were actually grabbing it and doing what students do. You see a little clearer, they want to peel it up, so, yeah, if folks like to see some of the photos, it'd be great. One thing I'd like to also talk about is we had a main line irrigation, it was a 6-inch main at the middle school football field. Wound up getting a phone call, I believe it was on Father's Day, so this is gonna take you back in June. But it was a substantial leak. We got the water shut off within a couple hours. I think we made it to social media. Tony Van gave me a call, said, hey, hate to book you on Father's Day, but we got a crisis. And so anyway, so if you look at one of the main line repairs, we've got that fixed and backfilled. The middle school West Lane paving project. I got talking to the city of Malala, and they had talked about paving West Lane, which is obviously West Lane goes right along the south side of the building. So as the school got out, the paving project started with the city. We brought mobilization, started digging everything up, started paving, then I got a phone call from the city saying, hey, Tone, we've got about a 5-foot by 200-foot swath that's not gonna get paved because it's on the property. We went by property lines. Come take a look. Well, I'm not gonna have a 5-foot swath of gravel between a new paving project in our parking lot. So it was Houck Construction, they're the one that paved the back middle Lake Wolverine years ago. So we had an account with Houck Construction, so I got on the phone with them, asked him if they could give me a price immediately. He had a price to me, his foreman was out there, measured it up. It was about $9,000 on our ticket, but there'll be no potholes. It was the perfect time to do it. We didn't have to pay for mobilization fees or anything. So we actually kind of cut us a little bit of a break on that. So that actually happened, and that was great. Other than that, yeah, with the siding going on this week, we've got the new dishwasher installed at Malino. We have one cold water line we need to supply. This week we wound up putting in a new water heater at Ruraldale. That's the last water heater. Today we had a boiler company come out and weld a crack in the middle school boiler. We had a small leak through the year, so we got that repaired today. Kind of like to piggyback on Jimmy. I did talk with Christina about the ADA issue up at Clark's a couple days ago. I kind of wanted to know exactly where the student got dropped off, how am I gonna rectify it? Because I didn't really hear anything about this till the end of the school year when Jimmy brought it to my attention. So talking with Christy, we were talking about putting a small ramp, because I was wondering how they drop the student off. And so we know that there's a paved area just next to the new concrete where there's a pathway that can take the student into the building. The problem is, we've got the buses that line up there, so if the parent comes in, they'll be trapped by the buses, so there's a pathway there, if we could do a scheduling thing, maybe before or after buses, but in the meantime, we talked about, you know, pouring maybe a small, you know, 40-inch ADA 36, we go wider, and a small ramp, so when the parents come in to drop off, you know, before or after students, we can have maybe a pad and a small ramp that could just get that student on that little pathway, so. We talked about putting a new ADA sign next to the other ADA sign for parking, and I actually talked to Ron, he does our striping for the soccer field and football field, to come up, with his striper, and we can stripe one designated lane, with slash marks next to it, so in case that person wants to park there, the challenge is the gravel from there to the pad. We pave the whole parking lot, you know, do we pave a walkway, and then the buses will drive over that, and then gravel, or does it break the concrete? So there's so many avenues that I'm trying to act as maybe an architect, or just trying to work with Christina and the students just to see what we can do there. So other than that, again, it's been super busy, lots of stuff happening. We got more stuff happening this next month. Other than that, I'm not sure if anybody has any other questions.
So, so when you think an ADA ramp will be up in the parks?
We're done before school.
Before, okay.
Yeah,
that's all I
so,
meant.
yeah, like I said, it's not gonna be a very big pad, just enough to where the buses aren't gonna drive over it. So we have a plan to let folks know that we're gonna address it, so, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm impressed with how much you get done between the meetings that we have with you.
Sometimes I can't believe a month has gone by.
Yeah,
You are.
thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, yeah, I've got a great staff, I've got a great supporting cast. Couldn't do without them, that's for sure. Awesome.
Any other comments or questions? No? Sure, appreciate you.
Oh, yeah, thanks you guys.
You know
Appreciate your
how
time.
much.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah.
Financial review. Keith.
Evening board, thank you, Chair Eskridge. I provided two financial reports tonight, one's for 22-23, the other one's 23-24. We're in that magical time right now of where 22-23 is still under audit, but we're still in obviously the 23-24 season. So I don't have much color to add. There's no material deviations from our last report, so.
What I appreciated, Keith, was the explanation that you had for the changes in the numbers. You know, just all the questions I started to come up with, you had the answer.
Good.
So, my questions have been answered. Anyone else have any questions? I'm good. Anyone else? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Teaching and learning report. Kathy Kathleen.
I'm waiting for my. And are we gonna project my little slideshow? From,
Let's, share your screen,
oh,
if you have it.
I do have it up. Oh, I got this. Do I have it in you? Screen mirror, yes. Boardroom Mountain TV, ooh, no, it's coming. Yes, I do have it. Okay. You never know. And it's just a small slide deck. Good evening, directors. Tonight my report is kind of light, but it will get heavier as the year progresses. We are doing so much. I listened to Tony Tiano, and we are doing a lot to prepare for this school year. You have my board notes, and it kind of shows you what our goals are, and it talks about those 3 focuses for the year. And I will dive more into those in the future board meetings. I talked about work of teaching and learning, and that goal is actually our newly adopted mission statement. And as you know, we'll be working with Studer to continue to build momentum and next steps for making that mission vision come alive. So I did want to share something to celebrate with you. Summer school is over,
If you really look at these pictures, you can see that kids are practicing being scientists, artists. Tons of hands-on learning occurred. This is the middle school. You can see archery, swimming, and that child is, I can't see it very well, but they're on a rope course. And it was about team building, and they have a harness attached. So that's, remember, I just want you to remember, this is funded by our SIA funds, and it is going to a great program. I feel like both the elementary and the middle school programs are really growing. Of course, the more we do it, the more we understand what there's, figure out what the great activities that engage students are. So I wanted to share that with you. And then I posted our new mission, and I highlighted just that small part where it talks about, we are committed to equipping every student with the knowledge and skills and mindset needed to fulfill their journey. And those are the things we're preparing for when we are looking at professional development. So everything is arranged for that newly adopted math material. Teachers will be receiving, the publishers will be doing a professional development with them. I think I talked about this last time I was here, because it's not just hard copy stuff, it's digital. How do you navigate? There's a lot to it. And so same with our English development curriculum. And we're continuing to strengthen instruction to ensure our students get the skills they need. As a matter of fact, in this room tomorrow at 8 a.m., we have about 25 teachers coming to do that very thing, just going through PD. And another one will be hosted at Molino, and that's about formative assessments. Those are assessments teachers design that are used on a daily or weekly basis. And finally, the robotics, we have 4 elementary teachers who are those early adopters. That's happening April 17th. They're getting that PD. And that is starting out small. It's a very expensive thing to do. We're not having to pay for it. We're doing it through a grant we got. The exciting thing I just found out is those 4 teachers they're gonna let them leave with a set of Sphero and Indy cards. It's a big deal. You can take it back to their classrooms and start kind of playing with the robotics things. So I hope to grow that. It's small right now, STEM, but we'll keep going with it because I know that's engaging for students. Any questions?
Oh, I'm just excited for this.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Thank you.
Student services.
Hello, good evening, directors. You have my report. I think one of the things I would just point out is staffing. This time last year, we had a lot more open positions than we do now. So it's a little bit of a celebration that we'll start the year. I'm optimistic that we'll find an occupational therapist, probably through a contractor. I'm also optimistic that we'll fill our SLP positions. It will be through a contractor. We've had 0 applications, as have most other districts in Clackamas, or probably the world right now. I have moved our SLPs that are currently employed here to be serving our elementary schools so that we are not having our K-5 have their services through telepractice. I do think telepractice can be excellent and can definitely meet the needs of our kids K-5. However, the person still seems slightly better. I am an SLP before I was this, and I would just say that if I had to choose which population I would support most effectively through telepractice, it would be older students. So, and then we're looking for one more learning specialist and a couple instructional assistants. The other thing that I didn't put in here is just Senate Bill 819. I'm not going to give a big, or you can ask me questions, not a big update. I'll probably give more an update maybe next month. It's being discussed heavily in the consortium of special education directors for the Clackamas ESD, which includes us, as well as all the lawyers that serve special education in this area. It is a bill that I think on its face, right, we don't want students with disabilities to not have a full day of instruction. And that's not something that Malala engaged in very often, and oftentimes when we do, it's by parent choice. Parents have decided that for whatever reason, they want their student to have a reduced day. And sometimes it's because they're taking them somewhere else, they're taking them to private therapies, et cetera. So the number one is the law stands right now, it doesn't have a lot of parent choice in it, in terms of if that's a parent choice that they don't want to have their student attend a full day. It also impacts our students who are on a 504. Some of our students, because of various health reasons, have needed to maybe be home and be tutored and have some other ways to receive their education. And it's making those kind of things very difficult. So although we were not choosing to put a student on a reduced day, this has been one of the ways that students have been able to access their education if there's something else going on that they need support with. So the word on the street is that this is gonna end up with some lawsuits and kind of, or some more scrutiny in terms of how it shapes out going forward. So we'll implement the best we can for now, just knowing that I guess what I keep saying is that we're on sand with the law in terms of how it will actually be implemented and what the implications are. So even something like OII, which we just discussed, the contract, they're a half day. That is going to be considered an abbreviated day. And right now we have to hold an IEP for every student in there that has an IEP every 35 days. Which is burdensome. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
You have to do an IEP every 35 days. What? Oh my gosh. Been down that road.
So, yeah, we're gonna work on that. But I'll give more details in the future, but I guess when I feel like things settle a little bit more. Other than that, the 21st to 25th is Sped Week. We call it Sped Week, kind of like Shark Week. It's definitely more exciting than Shark Week. And we bring in our special education staff early for a week and do in service for all 5 days. So it's an amazing investment that we make in our staff and supporting them to have the knowledge and skills they need to support our students with disabilities going forward.
This is in service for the teachers and your.
Yeah, and OT, occupational therapist, speech therapist, physical therapist, no. But we are doing a full day of training for our special education IAs on the 29th.
Is this Sped Week something new or had it been started?
Nope, I inherited it. Yeah, it's been in place for a while.
10 years?
No, I think 3.
years.
A couple years before I got here.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Robin. Curriculum instruction assessment. Oh, you already got that, never mind. Superintendent's report.
Chair Eskridge and directors, I think the only piece that I would add here this evening is that we'll be carefully monitoring enrollment as the school year starts. With the apartments coming on board and families moving in, that's going to be an important priority for us to be ready for any additional students. Our principals are ready to greet and welcome kids and families, and it's going to be a great school year. It's going to be a great school year. I appreciate all the work that's happening in the district, the new mission vision. Anyway, it's exciting. I'm excited. I appreciate the staff who are here tonight, and that's all I have.
Next is board comments. Anyone want to comment? You do, Karen?
Almost everybody looks great tonight.
Almost everybody, who's?
I said everybody.
Who
He said everybody was
I
nice.
did say everybody looked nice. Also, I got to participate in the school shooting scenario at the high school 2 days ago. Yeah, today's Thursday, so 2 days ago. That was fun. We'll do it again at winter break. I think we're gonna try and do it at the middle school. I just thought it was amazing to see people come together, the police, fire, EMS, and all of those that came together to be the victims and the screamers down the hallway. Some people were really good screamers. Some are really good runners, but it was kind of nice to see how the officers maneuver through the school and what their activities are and how focused they are on what they've got to do. And once their job's done, how EMS and fire comes in and does their steps and then how they manage their way through the building and take all their victims and plan all of that. That was exciting. I'm gonna lucky you be a victim again.
Yeah.
Play, for play, not for real.
Right, for play.
It's good to know that they're.
Rob?
Question, is the school gonna get a report on how that went from whoever to know response
This is
times
an-
and this, that, and the other, or
It's
this?
an internal training for the fire, police and EMS.
Okay.
I don't know that necessarily goes to the admin.
So we've been collaborating with first responders along the way. I think the coordination of this event was something that I worked with our high school administration on, to make sure that was moving forward. This is the second time we've done a similar training. I was on site for this one, but I was on site for earlier on a couple of years ago to see first responders. It gives them an opportunity to practice in a way that has them more ready, our staff and our students practice for the unforeseeable event, the God forbid event.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're practicing ready, law enforcement, first responders, responders are practicing ready, and so we never have to.
Yeah, just, like I said, knowing if there are any areas that need to be worked on specifically by the school, they did.
Not by the school, this is all
This is
by
all
your
just-
emergency services
Okay.
on how they coordinate, how they would block off roads. So
Okay.
parents can't come and run through the doors to save their kids.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, I was an annoying 14-year-old, so, I was on my cell phone, I was screaming and yelling at my mom and broadcasting every event. It's like,
Screaming at live.
well, I wasn't really, because you can't, but, just being in that, and our EMS and fire, they really do study other events that could be happening now, have happened, things like that. So it was really kind of nice, I see them interact all the time, but to be on the other side was different than just a mass casualty of fire or earth or earthquake or something, but to see it inside of a building play out, that was a little different.
Yeah.
So big kudos to our resource officer, just for closing meeting. Yes.
Everybody's having a brain fart today.
But
I'm not
I mean,
the only one with Alzheimer's.
it was nice to see him and the other officers work within our school. And we had several different agencies here working together, so
Cool.
that was fun.
Linda,
Yes, Greg.
I just wanted to say shout out to our staff, especially administrative staff and our superintendent. I know, having sat through this meeting, as well as many others, that's how hard a job this is.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing all the folks here tonight made me appreciate, maybe a little more, how it's sort of hard to walk that line and listen to one people like me, it's just, I appreciate all that you guys do, to keep this district running pretty darn efficient and well.
Yes.
Well-oiled machine. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, doing very well.
Pass that along to.
Okay, any more board comments? Seeing none, we're moving right along. Upcoming meetings, August 24th, work session in the district. August 29th, policy meeting, that's virtual. September 14th, business meeting. Now I need a motion. To adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move
To adjourn. Second, move that seconded. All those in favor, raise your right arm. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
All right.